What's up everybody, we just recently got some interesting new information regarding the new upcoming hero Echo, the Paris ARG, as well as Blizzard's current position when it comes to new hero releases. This is Master Ian Gamer, and let's get into it. Now all this information comes from an interview which was held on the German Overwatch YouTube channel, High Score Heroes. I'll have a link to the videos covering this interview down in the description so you can feel free to check that out. The developer being interviewed was Joshua No, an associate game designer who works closely with Jeff Goodman when it comes to designing and balancing heroes. There's a lot of really interesting stuff talked about in this interview, so today I'm going to be running through some of the more interesting topics which stuck out to me from this interview and discussing my thoughts about what it could mean. And first up has to do with the Paris ARG. Now Joshua didn't actually specifically mention the Paris ARG, but he kind of ended up debunking it by answering a different question. When asked about the new hero Baptiste and how he only had one teaser compared to other heroes, which often get 3 or 4 teasers and are dragged out a bit more in order to build a bit more hype leading up to their release, Joshua responded by saying that they didn't have any goal to sort of play down Baptiste's release or build up in any way, but that Blizzard themselves are specifically intentionally avoiding large ARGs similar to the one we had for Sombra because of how poorly that one was received. Now, while he didn't mention Paris or the Paris ARG specifically, I think this does kind of debunk the whole theory that there is something going on with Paris in the secret door. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Paris ARG, rather than me trying to go into detail explaining it here, I do recommend you check out one of my other videos I made covering the ARG, or theoretical ARG I guess I should say, which I'll have linked in the cards on screen as well as the description down below. It's actually pretty interesting, so I do recommend checking that out if you haven't already, but sadly at this point it looks like it has been kind of debunked. I have to admit, even before I watched this interview, I was at the point where I was starting to get really skeptical about whether anything was really going on there. It just felt like nothing had really been discovered and just no new leads were happening, to the point that I was starting to lose hope, and now it seems like it is in fact dead in the water. Oh well, at least it was fun looking for clues and whatnot, and honestly I think Blizzard should do ARGs as long as they keep a more small scale and tone down. Moving on to the next topic though, we got some interesting insight into the upcoming hero Echo. Now I'm pretty sure everybody here already knows who Echo is, but just in case you don't, she is of course the Omnic we saw at the end of the reunion animated short at this past BlizzCon. Once again, I've already made a video going super in depth about everything we know about her so far, so be sure to check that out through the cards on screen. But anyways, according to Joshua No, Echo is definitely going to be a hero at some point, but he specifically said that he doesn't think she'll be the next hero, being Hero 31. Now, given what we know about Blizzard and their process of releasing new heroes, it's pretty safe to say at this point that the devs internally already 100% know who Hero 31 is going to be. So when he says here that he doesn't think she'll be the next hero, to me that's him basically saying, for a fact, no, she isn't going to be the next hero. I think he just worded it this way in order to sound more mysterious and to generate more speculation, which I gotta admit, he did a pretty good job of achieving that. But I think the safe to say outcome of this is that no, Echo will not be Hero 31. Now to be fair, I was already a bit skeptical about this. Judging by her design, she's basically guaranteed to be a support hero, and after we saw Baptiste released as Hero 30, I really don't think they're going to go ahead and release 2 support heroes in a row at this point. Yeah, they did it in the past with Moira and Brigitte, but at this point in time, we really need a new tank hero, and I think the release of Baptiste as Hero 30 was entirely justified, and I think he was a really good addition for them to push through at this point, but to then have a second support hero come out immediately after him, I don't think that would be such a good idea. So because of that, I was already thinking that Echo probably won't be 31, but now we get it pretty much official, no she won't. She could possibly still be Hero 32, which would also then make her a BlizzCon release hero, which would be quite fitting for a character who's had so much hype placed on her already. But of course, we will just have to wait and see, and BlizzCon is still several months off, so we'll talk about that more in videos later on down the line. But for now, just know that Echo is not Hero 31. However, on the topic of new heroes, Joshua No did did give a bit of interesting insight into what we might be able to expect in the near future, or at the very least, just what's kind of going on internally with Blizzard when it comes to releasing new characters. For example, when asked about the thought process behind releasing Baptiste now as opposed to, say, being Hero 31 or 32, he gave an interesting response, saying that at any given time, several heroes are ready to be released, and Baptiste was just the one at this point which they decided to push forward. Now, saying that several heroes are ready to be released, I think was just poor wording on his part here. What that sounds like, I'm sure to most people, is that Blizzard could just press a button and suddenly we'd be playing 6 new heroes. It is definitely not that simple. When he says ready to be released, he probably means that the heroes are in a development stage where they're technically playable. They most likely already have all their abilities planned out and maybe even a prototype that's playable in their internal build, but they definitely don't have art assets. Many of them likely don't even have official stories or character backgrounds, and probably have had very little, if any, balance testing at this point. So when he says ready to be released, he most likely means that they're ready to be pushed forward and made the next hero, but they're not just instantaneously ready to be played by the general public. So while it definitely sounds exciting, I just wanted to sort of clarify what I'm pretty sure he means and dispel any sort of overhype that would end up generating from people hearing the idea that there are multiple heroes ready to be released. However, I do think it's still really interesting to hear him talk about these heroes in this way. I think it gives us some decent insight into the mindset of the developers and how they perceive heroes along the pipeline of starting as a concept and ending up as a finished in-game playable hero. I think if anything, it really emphasizes how much of a hero's development has to do with the abilities and mechanics versus the cosmetic aspects. While those are definitely important, it really does mostly come down to the gameplay aspects. Does the hero work mechanically? Is it something that's interesting to have in the game? Is it going to be fun to play? Those are clearly the big questions that the Blizzard devs have to ask themselves in order to determine whether a hero can actually end up being a member of the roster. I don't know, maybe I'm putting just a little too much emphasis on this one comment he made, but I always just love trying to sort of meta-analyze comments made by the developers. I love trying to get insight into how they see the game and their stance on what makes a hero balanced or good, and the thought process that they use when it comes to designing new heroes and what they consider about them. Anyways, that'll do it for all the really interesting things that stuck out to me from this interview. There was a lot of trivial yet interesting information regarding the design process of Baptiste and the sort of iterations he went through while they were designing him. So once again, I'll have a link to both of the videos covering this interview down in the description, so I do recommend you check those out if you're interested in seeing the entire interview and hearing everything Joshua No had to say. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching, and be sure to let me know your thoughts about anything I talked about here today, or any of the topics discussed in this interview. What are your thoughts on the apparent debunking of the Paris ARG, and are you kind of upset that Echo won't be Hero 31, or maybe you're actually excited to know that it's going to be somebody else? Either way, be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and share it with a friend if you really liked it. Subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and hit up the bell to never miss any of my future Overwatch content. This is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.